Hi again everyone, I hope you're all doing really well. It just seems that ContextLogic aka Wish can't do anything right. During the past few days of broad market sell-off, when I've looked at my trading platform, Wish has actually been up. It is astounding. In fairness, the company did eventually enter the fold and ended Friday slightly in the red, but it was a bizarre event considering the sea of red among pretty much all stocks over the last couple of days, particularly the basket of meme stocks. This has led me to think that perhaps Wish could emerge as an unexpected winner in these increasingly stark economic settings that we see ourselves entering into. Anyway, this video is going to be exploring this somewhat bizarre idea of mine by looking at some of the rumblings around ContextLogic as a company which is still yet to put out any major news event in recent times. I will also take a bit of a look at some of the recent trading trends for Wish in light of all of this. So let's get into it. So to start with, and to kind of set a bit of a scene, I want to look at this chart about Wish's website traffic. Much has been made about the declining user base of the Wish platform since it IPO'd. Wish as a platform really did peak in the early days of the pandemic in the lead up to their eventual IPO, as can be seen on this website traffic chart, where unique users was at one point higher than 90 million a month, which is very impressive. This traffic has since been on a slide with a flattening around the later half of last year. Something that is further disappointing is that the traffic for December 2021 was actually lower than it had been the month before in November. And when your business model is reliant on more traffic equaling more sales, this chart does not bode well for the company. Though it is worth pointing out that this was something that management had flagged recently, and they are expecting to have weaker financial results than were seen in Q3, which sucks because Q4 is probably the most important and active of the quarters for retail trade, thus important for Wish. I'll link this Nasdaq article in the description if you want to have a look further into this. Anyway, now that we've kind of set the scene for what's been happening with Wish, if you are invested in ContextLogic, you have been living on a prayer for some months now. But perhaps ContextLogic may have better days ahead of it, particularly in this higher inflation environment which we seem to be finding ourselves entering into at a greater and greater pace. Now, this might all be wishful thinking, but in times of high inflation, consumers may be looking to buy discount goods as substitutes to make their devalued dollars stretch further. Which leads me to the second issue, which has been impacting e-commerce and the broader economy, is the supply bottlenecks which have emerged through the pandemic and are very much one of the causes of the current economic slowdown we're experiencing. Wish in 2021 did invest money into trying to establish their own supply chains, which would theoretically improve shipping times and overall customer satisfaction. Add to this the notion that we may see a bit of a general slowdown in global economic activity. This could mean if global commerce activity slows, it may free up shipping capacity, particularly from China. Then when you add in what Wish has already invested in terms of their supply chain, suddenly their service is starting to look more efficient and thus more attractive. Now thirdly, and finally for my mini thesis, online advertising, at least anecdotally, seems to be in decline. Now let me enter Graham Stephan's recent comments about his own YouTube advertising earnings from his most recent video.
In terms of this, what I also found very interesting and potentially telling about the future state of the economy is that since December, my own ad rates have dropped about 20 to 25% throughout every single one of my 5 channels, which is a rate decrease that I have not seen since I first started posting videos in 2017. Now, even though I don't want to read too much into it, it does seem as though, anecdotally speaking, companies have begun to pull back on advertising, likely because they aren't getting the same ROI, there's fewer people to market to, and if Netflix is any indication, they're preparing for a time of slower growth.
Now, what does this decline in advertising have to do with Wish? Well, as a company, they reinvest much of their revenue to drive sales, very much like a dropshipping business. In the height of their user traffic in 2020, they were shooting 62% of their revenue back into advertising to bring new users to the platform. This was when advertising was cheap. The company has since trimmed this spend down to 40% of revenue, which along with the since increase in online advertising costs has heavily added to the decline in users on the platform. If the costs of advertising are reducing again, this could mean Wish is starting to get more bang for their advertising bucks and are now able to lure more users who are increasingly in the market for discount goods. So call me crazy, but Wish could be about to potentially fall into the perfect storm of market conditions, which could act as a bit of a lifeline for the company. It's a little bit crazy, but you never know. Now, to add some further spice to the scenario, Wish looks set to make a major announcement regarding the CEO at the end of the month, i.e. potentially next week. Perhaps we are starting to see why Wish stock has actually largely resisted much of the market downturn that has been experienced in the past couple of days. Now, personally, I had not heard anything about when Wish was going to land or say anything about the new CEO until I saw this article, so this was a bit of a shock to me. I do hope it is correct and that someone experienced may be announced any day now, which in itself would be a catalyst for a potential price spike. However, if the announcement ends up being something underwhelming, like they are still looking for a candidate or they're going to promote someone inexperienced or an internal promotion, I foresee those as a potential catalyst for the stock to drop. Anyway, I'm still hopeful that it is about an appointment for a CEO and an experienced CEO at that. Let's just watch this space. One last sort of green shoot for Wish stock is that Wall Street analysts, with the exception of one, have not been advocating to sell ContextLogic stock just yet. They are not optimistic on the stock, but believe it is still deserving of a hold rating, and with a consensus of a 12-month price prediction of $4.70, there is actually quite a lot of upside in the stock at the current share prices. Not that I'm going to be jumping in to increase my holdings anytime soon. If this price is realised this year, I will still be down. I suppose for me, I'm kind of holding my breath to hear what happens regarding the new CEO and quietly dreading the upcoming Q4 numbers. As for how Wish has been performing this week, well, the stock has actually been better than most of the broad market and generally traded in a flat trend. And in terms of being up for large parts of the past two sessions, we can see that there were long and sustained rallies from the stock. So perhaps something is there in terms of broader optimism for the stock's future. Overall this week, the stock did finish 3 cents down and seemed to find lower resistance at around the current share price, around the $2.45 point. Let's see if this can continue to be a point of support going forward in the face of what looks like further market doom and gloom in the week ahead. Anyway, so while things still seem bleak for Wish stock, I have at least managed to convince myself that the seemingly dark economic conditions that are approaching could be a bit of a rebirth of or lifeline for ContextLogic stock, much like the early pandemic days were pre-IPO. In recent history, Wish seems to be a company that does better when things are going to crap. Anyway, I want to emphasize the could be because knowing the disappointment that has often been pinned to this stock, I would not count on this by any stretch. I think we really need to hear something more official from the company on literally anything. For now, I am holding my position and not really making any plans to expand except through buying and selling dips and peaks in the stock. Although I probably will not do so this week if there is going to be an announcement around the CEO in the near future. Anyway, what do you guys think about the stock? Will there be a turnaround with a potential new CEO? Can the $4.70 price target actually be realised? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if there is a stock you would potentially like me to take a look at, mention a ticker symbol in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. Till next time everyone, may the markets trade in your favour. Cheers.